Hey guys, good morning. So, I was looking into the orphan trains, and I've long time suspected that, you know, just thinking of my story alone, I was brought here from a different country and I was kept as an indentured servant. And when you go into the orphan trains, it looks like they were choosing children based on specific genetic attributes and then keeping them. They're basically taking the children as slaves into their house, and this is something that I think they've done for a long time. Where I found that document a long time ago. Where it was like the Copyright Act, where there's something called orphan works. Orphan works. And basically the orphan is shared by a society, pretending, they strip you of your name when you are brought here from a different country. And, either put you in an internment camp, Camp 7, CIA, or Guantanamo Bay by, framing you for a crime you didn't commit. But on paper, you're outside of the legal reach of the U.S. system, which is what, when Bush passed these laws after 9/11, Guantanamo Bay has other operational centers, not just in Cuba. And Camp 7 and Camp 9, holds children. And one of the children's IDs was 666. And if you remember, I was talking about this before, these children, they think they're going to a family, they think they're going into a better life, and they're really being kept as slaves. And it's such an outrageous abuse of a human being. It's really, actually, it's so tragic to see these pictures. This guy, his last name is Brace, created this whole system where he set up something called the Children's Aid Society. And, so basically the children would come out and they would do like a little dance or sing, and then they would be chosen, based on certain attributes. And then think they're going to a home where they're taken care of, and they're really used as indentured servants. And I mean, this has been in place. You guys know that I found documents that actually said indentured servants on them, up in Santa Clara, where they're selling children. They've always done this. And whether you call it sale or donation, it's the same thing. It's slavery. It's human slavery. And so, I don't know if they used back then these children for other things like, the breeding program or, other more terrible things than just indentured servitude. I don't know if they were tested for blood type, like I think they do now, where if you have a rare blood, you're considered a high value detainee by the federal government, wherever you come from. And I think that is, the way they're using people in the breeding program and the way they're testing people for blood, or PKU. It's a test that you get when you have a baby. Your child gets a test, PKU. It's this test. Let me show it to you. PKU. It's this. Okay. Now, it's a rare but potentially serious inherited disorder. Our bodies break down the protein in foods such as meat and fish into amino acids, which are building blocks, blah, blah, blah. And let me show you this. So everybody's tested for this when they're born. All right. This is something that is, if you start to look at medical files, the medical files I found that were disclosed just on computers, which is a HIPAA violation, down in Orange County, where, it claimed I, for one, was an allegedly retarded male. It had this in it, that the person had this, which I have. And even though it's, it looks like one thing, it also is a designation of a certain blood type. Okay, so that is why it says you cannot break down amino acid phenylalanine, which builds up in your blood and brain, and it can lead to brain damage. So around 5 days old, babies are offered newborn blood spot screening, which this disorder makes you worth a lot of money, because your blood is a different, you don't have the same, your blood, the Rh null blood lacks antibodies. So, it lacks antigens in the Rh system. Okay, so you become a universal donor. And when you go back to this, let me just show you. So originally they said, of course this is put out by the NHS, so, oh my God, the NHS, oof. NHS works very closely. There's a bilateral agreement with the U.S. government. This treaty I found, I don't know if it's this one, Treaty of Ghent, where there were slaves, they were holding slaves. They were holding slaves that belonged to the U.S. The British promised to return the freed slaves. I mean, this is a long time ago, 1814, right? However, a few years later, in 1826, Britain instead paid the U.S., $1 million, which is equivalent to $27 million in 2020 for them. Both nations also promised to work towards the end of the international slave trade. Slave trade is alive and well. They just have found better ways to hide it. Guantanamo Bay is one of those ways. Camp 7 is one of those ways. Camp 7 is run. You can say that Camp 7 is, it's run by the CIA. And MK Ultra, I did find, remember on the documents I found, the detention documents, it had Marcella Kreisinger on it. And that's MK. MK Ultra is a co-op agreement between the federal labor unions, the federal, I don't know what it's called. It's some federal agency, I think it's Federal Labor Commission, and California unemployment. So I kept seeing my name on these documents going, I can't be married to all of these people, but they use you as chattel. I mean, you're used as chattel. So one of the controversial, I was trying to look up what are the laws that allow human slavery. The UK-US extradition treaty of 2003. Okay, you go down here. When you look up the treaties, you find Five Eyes a lot too, which is interesting. I know if you watch Amazing Polly, you probably know what Five Eyes are. So, let me see. Okay, this isn't showing it. Let me find this. There's something where they can make the assumption of guilt where you don't even have to be reasonable. Here it is. Among other provisions, Part 2 of the Act, extradition to Category 2 territories, non-European arrest warrant territories, aka the U.S. government, removed the requirement on the U.S. to provide prima facie evidence in extraditions from the U.K., requiring instead only reasonable suspicion. It's a legal standard of proof in the United States that is less than probable cause. The legal standard for arrests and warrants, but more than an inchoate and unparticularized suspicion or hunch. It must be based on specific and articulable facts. So they don't actually, my arrest in Miami, where I don't live, puts you detained permanently in a legal no man's zone called Camp 7. Camp 9, which is, when they bring you in as a child, they can just keep you there as a child, pretend you're a child. It's called the Children's Waiting Room in the regional centers, and then hold you for crimes you didn't commit based on reasonable suspicion. And another thing that they do is so this is an interesting, the extradition treaty. Because instead of prima facie evidence, which is a Latin expression meaning on its first encounter or at first sight, the literal translation would be at first face or at first appearance from the feminine forms of primus. It means that you have evidence of a crime. Okay, but because when you're detained, I think I showed you guys the Detainee Act. When you're detained, when you're in detainment or you're a prisoner of war, any of your money, they assume you stole it, so they seize it. And it's pretty disgusting. Division A, we've seen like the A-team, we've got doctors talking about being in the A-team. It's an act of the United States Congress that was signed into law by President George Bush. Offered as an amendment to a supplemental defense spending bill. It contains provisions relating to treatment of persons in custody of the Department of Defense and administration of detainees held in Guantanamo, right? Including prohibiting cruel and inhumane, degrading treatment or punishment, but they're using you as a universal donor. So they seize blood, they seize organs, they do all kinds of things, requiring military interrogations to be performed according to the U.S. Field Manual. Well, not in Camp 7, because then you're under, what is this? The manual gives instructions on a range of issues such as the structure, planning, and management of human intelligence operations, requiring that habeas corpus appeals for aliens detained at Guantanamo be per the DTA, though offering no specific provisions for it. There's a couple of laws out there that allow you to bring habeas corpus for being illegally, unlawfully detained. But Camp 7 is by extension it's like a catch and release where they release you into the community, but you're under jurisdiction of the CIA. Anyway, all of these are outside of the legal framework, of going to a policeman or, LAPD reporting a crime. It won't get reported. So they're saying this, Division A, it prohibits inhumane treatment of prisoners. But when you read the Detainee Act, it says, except for if there's an immigration, like an immigration defect, like they were brought here from another country, then you can torture them. And that is crazy. That is crazy. And I think there's a lot of children that probably aren't even, they might just be stolen children. They're not actually orphans. Anyway, I just want to show you guys this.